Okay, here we
Now,
go. All right. Hi, this is Nick Curto, co-founder and director of Disclosure Network New York. And I'm your host for the live DNNY Zoom meeting today. And we would like to welcome you all to this meeting. Glad to have you here. As you all know, DNNY is a grassroots organization, and we're now celebrating our 20th year. Believe it or not, we've been going for 20 straight years, providing 2 meetings a month throughout the year in Manhattan. And we focus on UFO ET issues, paranormal phenomenon of all kinds, and other many important and related subjects from a wide variety of areas and sources. And we go very deep into these exciting and sometimes very much misunderstood subjects that the mainstream press will not talk about or ever discuss. Our members do intensive investigative research and in various cutting issues, including a lot of research on the internet. And then we share that information with each other with our different emails that we do every single day because there's so much news right now. I'm going to ask everybody to, except for our guest today, to mute so that if you're sneezing or whatever, it won't be on the soundtrack. And then when we actually get to talk on the Q&A, you can then unmute. So if everybody would do that. Okay, so we're going to be doing Zoom meetings, 2 meetings a month, and it will be going on right up until the venue that we do in the West Village reopens, and God only knows when that's going to be. And what I'd like to do is also do an additional Zoom meeting once a month, so that we'll have 2 meetings face-to-face and a Zoom meeting also, which will open it up to some people who are not in the vicinity of Manhattan. One more thing I'd like to add is that our motto right from day one is, quote, connecting the dots to seek truth, unquote. And we really do live by that. And we have been blessed with so many people that are deep researchers, and they give us this information as they find it. And we really do connect the dots. I'm so grateful and proud of the connections that we have. We've never had a better group than right now. And we have people in Hawaii, in England, and all over the United States, and a couple in Canada that have given us information and do on a regular basis. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you all for contributing what you find, because it really helps us to understand really what's going on and the truth of our lives. And believe me, as you know, there's a lot of aggressive information that's designed to block what the truth really is. So with that, I want to get right to it. I'd like to welcome our guest speaker for today. She is a good new friend of mine, and I'm very thrilled to have her, Adrienne Thoben. Adrienne, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, again, I've been looking so much forward to this interview, and I just want to state at the beginning of this that for any person who decides to share their very personal and sometimes very difficult experiences with a group is really an act of love, because they're taking their very personal experiences and expressing them and sharing them with everyone. And it's just a real act of courage, I would say. So, Adrienne, I just want to say right at the beginning that we really thank you so much for taking the time and the effort to be here and doing that for us today.
I can guarantee the pleasure is half mine because I know I will learn things here too.
So I'm going to start right from the very beginning, very quickly, and then we'll get into the issues. So first of all, my first question would be, where were you born and raised?
I was born in New Haven, Connecticut, and for the first 7 years of my life, 8 years maybe, I was in Bethany, Connecticut. We built a house there, and then I moved to Orange, Connecticut. So I was in Southern Connecticut for a good part of my life until I moved to the Northwest corner.
Okay, if you will, speak up a little bit on volume, just so we have you. Okay, and with your family, did you have many brothers and sisters?
No, I had one older sister. She was 6.5 years older than I was.
Okay, and how about your mom and dad? Just quickly, what professions did they have, or just a little bit about them?
Well, they were both born in America, first generation. I'm second generation. Our ancestors came from Greece. And about them, did I miss the question? What are you looking
Well,
specifically for
just like
profession?
what profession, if they had professions, your dad and your mom?
Right. My father was a policeman, a police officer for maybe 35 years in New Haven. He started out as armorer and training SWAT teams and all that in the 60s. And then he retired as a sergeant. My mother was working for Yale as an administrative assistant to the dean for the School of Administrative Sciences, which became the School of Organization and Management.
Okay, very good. And just briefly, where did you go to school?
For high school, I went to Amity High School, and I
Both.
also, yeah, I started off, in Bethany, and then to Orange Elementary, and then, yeah, Amity High School in Woodbridge, and I finished a couple of years of college at the University of Hartford.
Okay. And just briefly, what profession or professions have you been in during your life?
Okay, well, my goal was to be an artist, but that didn't really work out as far as pulling in any money because I did go to art school.
Okay.
I really loved philosophy, but that was going nowhere. So I ended up plunking myself eventually into the construction business, and I was in it for many years between building stone walls and doing landscaping to being a white hard hat inspector for many big jobs.
Wow.
And then I finished off with a company called Tilcon, Connecticut, and I liked working in the highway and lab. I had 2 certifications there.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. And the other question I love to ask, especially with these kind of interviews, is uh, your grandmother, grandfather on both sides, or your mom and dad, or anyone else in the family ever express any uh, experiences like they've seen a UFO or had paranormal? Has anyone in the family ever mentioned that to you or anyone?
I was not able to meet only but one of my grandparents on my mother's side, and she passed away when I was about 1, although I do remember her. My mother, I do think she had some abilities. Um, because we were pretty strict Greek Orthodox, that was kind of a no-no category. No one really wanted to talk about it. And my mother did at one instance when we were watching a movie. I think it had to do with a mother witch and a daughter who also was quite witchy. And they were having a argument of sorts. And the mother told the daughter, "Where do you think you got it from?" And then
Oh,
my mother turned to me and looked at me and said, "And where do you think you got it from?"
oh,
And
that's interesting.
that was about the only time she ever
Right.
acknowledged anything. My father, later on in life, when I was in my 30s, I mentioned to him that I did see my mother after she passed away in 88, a full body apparition. And he actually disowned me for 3 years, saying that was voodoo. Go figure.
Yeah.
Because after he passed away, he was here quite often and he still shows up, which I find quite humorous. So he did have an experience when I was growing up in Orange, Connecticut, though. I was there from 3rd grade until I left to go to college. That's a very long story, and that was a terrifying story where it
Okay. Well,
ended.
okay. Well, we'll definitely get to that for sure because I think you've piqued our interest. I just want to go kind of chronologically. So, the very first time you can remember that something was going on, that either paranormal or something was going on. I don't know what age it might be, how early, but can you recall any of that?
Yes, I can recall many things. At the time, of course, I had no clue at age 3 it's paranormal. The subject wasn't even, it wasn't beyond what I knew from television. And what happened was these 2 people in our home in Bethany who claimed to be my parents. I knew they weren't my parents. And it was a frightening experience because they both had very dark hair. They had very dark, big eyebrows. They almost looked alike, and they claimed to be my parents, and I knew they were not.
Did they actually tell you at one point? How did you find that out?
I'm having trouble remembering a lot of it, but I just knew instinctively they were not my parents.
Wow,
And
that's huge. That's right off the bat. That's something. Wow.
yeah, because it was very odd. And
Yeah.
about age 4, now this is where it all kind of gets kind of weird.
Okay.
I was out in the front yard, and this is a huge yard. We're on top of a hill in Francis Drive, Connecticut, Bethany. Um, and I had a little Matchbox race car, and I was throwing it up in the air, trying to catch it. And suddenly, in my right, it's the tragus of your ear. It's where if you put your finger on your ear and close it shut, that flap of skin, it hurt so bad it stunned me. I
Huh.
was standing still. I couldn't even run to my mother. I was frozen in pain. The best way I can describe it is if you had the most intense sound wave pinpointing that part of your ear, but you don't hear anything, that it's that painful. And then eventually it waned away. It probably lasted about 15 seconds. This would happen 2 to 3 times a year up until age 30 something. And then it switched ears.
Oh,
I had a little bit of a reprieve, but that was I didn't know what it was. And it would never happen when I was riding my bike or driving a car or anything dangerous. But I have a feeling this was an implant. And I'll have to jump ahead to
sure.
when I moved here because, let's see, all right, at age 30, it gave me a 2-year reprieve, and then it ended up in my left ear. And I was like, oh, no, not again. And it was multiple times a year. And then I think I was about 41 or 42. I had just gotten my first laptop computer, and I was living here, newly married to my late husband. At the computer, something came out of my ear. And it was about the size of, I'll try and describe it, about the size of a perfectly shaped Rice Krispie, but it was more rounded at the end like a football, a little bit dulled. And it was a dark brick red. And I looked at it under the magnifying glass, and it had these red hooked hairs all over it. It was very small. And I said, what the devil is this? So I got a razor blade, and I figured it was an implant because it was just too perfectly shaped and looked too strange. So I got a razor blade and I cut it open. And inside, it was very hard to work with. And inside was this graphite looking little arrowhead. And I chopped that apart. It actually shattered. It was very strange. And
Was there any, Adrienne, was there any blood associated when it came out of your ear?
no, no, I
Okay.
have had, when I was young, I was a bloody nose kid up until the late 20s. I mean, it was embarrassing. It was chronic. And did have blood in my ear when I was little, but I figured it was just a bug bite or something. You really don't know. Um, so I just threw the thing out. I did look at on the computer, and I ran into one other man under ear implants or alien implants, and it was the exact same thing. So I know they exist, that it wasn't just an anomaly, organic out of my ear. And
Wow.
because of where it came out and located, plus what I went through, and I did not have any of those ear piercing events since that came out either.
Mhm.
So that coordinates. It's kind of hypothetical, or what do you go, circumstantial evidence, but it fits.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I've talked to other people who've had implants removed. In one case, they actually moved a little bit
Mm-hmm.
on their own, which was, I would think, frightening. Uh, Implants can be anywhere in your body. Did you ever experience any markings on your body of any kind?
Only bruising. At
Okay.
the time, I didn't get to really know anything about UFOs, gougings, and all that until the year 2000. So that's rather recent.
Okay.
The only time I recall anybody making note of anything on my body was when I lived in Orange, Connecticut. Then I came from my bedroom down into the kitchen, and my mother noticed my arm. and it had a whole row of finger marks on it. And she goes, "Where did you get those?" And I said, "I don't know." There was one odd thing that happened in Orange, though. Um, Not markings, but I woke up and I was soaking wet
Huh.
from head to toe. My pajamas, it was as if you dipped me in something. And
Wow.
and it wasn't urine. It was just too much fluid. And I smelled it to see if it was urine, and it wasn't. And it had a particular smell to it. It was a sweet, almost like a warm, wet, sweet smell, almost like a field after the rain or something. Very odd. And when I had gotten a job on a farm for the winter, they raised organic sheep. This was in the 90s. And one
Okay.
of the mother sheep had trouble delivering. She wasn't able to nurse the baby. So after I took care of it, I shoved it in my jumpsuit and zipped it up to keep it warm. And that smell, I said, "Oh my God, that my hair's standing up." Woo.
Interesting. Interesting.
That
Was it
smell
like
was amniotic fluid. It smelled
right,
like,
right. Was it a clear, like transparent, like water? Was it like that?
yes. I mean, the sheep, the amniotic fluid is just fluid, and it smelled just like what I recall when I was probably 10 years old.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's weird, huh?
Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
was I? It's like, whoa. Did they put me in one of those tanks perhaps with another? That's what I think. But who
Right.
knows? Who knows?
Oh, so take us to the from that early experiences. Take us to another place a little further on.
Okay. I ended up writing a lot of these down just because there's so many. Um, One I had was was actually one I enjoyed. It was with a praying mantis being with a grasshopper head. And this it was actually about a 30 or 40-second experience, but it'll take me a few minutes to describe it.
Sure. Please go ahead.
So I'm going to try and describe the size and the shape of this vehicle I was in. First of all, it was rather small. If you can imagine an oversized interior of a Volkswagen with a larger, taller windshield that wrapped around more. Now you kind of have a sense, taller ceiling and whatnot. So the first thing I remember is looking down at my feet, and the floor was black and a little stippled, just like a brand new car where you would sit as a passenger. And there was some beach sand on the floor in a Milky Way wrapper. And it wasn't mine. And I thought, oh, someone's been in here before. And I look to my left, and there's a very tall mantis being, big eyes. He was hard to look at because he had, I was repulsed by him, which is kind of embarrassing, but I had to look at him. He had a trapdoor jaw, which is almost, how can I say, armored like a turtle tummy or something. And there was these two feelers on the side of his mouth. I was looking at the right side of his face, and they were moving, and it was making a squishy sound. And I was like, oh, it was a bug thing. I guess uh, I couldn't really get a grip on
I
my
would have
nerve,
lost it. I would have totally lost it then.
but he was compassionate. He's a
Oh,
very
okay.
compassionate being. His knees, which I thought was funny, were way up, and his arms were in between his knees, and for lack of better terms, in through these two portals in a dashboard. I don't know what was at the other end of his arms. He was definitely ectoskeletal. And he was wearing a smock. It was almost like a brown, sleeveless felt smock. So here's this giant being with his knees, big knees, steering this vehicle. And what I can see out in front of me was the ocean. It reminded me of West Haven, Connecticut, because I had been there before. And we were about, I'd say, 20 feet above and maybe 40 feet away from a lamppost. And down below was a paved sidewalk. And beyond that was beach. And there was about 4 teenagers there. And he tipped the vehicle a little bit so I could see them. And I couldn't figure out why these kids couldn't see us. And he said, he looked at me with these loving eyes, compassionately said, "Are you enjoying the ride?"
Whoa.
And I had to look at him again, which I was so repulsed. And I said, yes. There was no actual talking. It was, nonverbal communication. And I looked away, and you can tell by his face that he knew I couldn't handle his features. And that was the last thing I remember. He cut out my memory. So
Wow.
that was interesting.
Wow.
I would like
Did
to
you have
meet
a
him.
sensation of moving in the vehicle? Did you have any feeling of gravity or anything like that?
I don't recall moving. All I remember is observing and then being tipped a little bit to see what was below. He
Okay.
was showing me the other people.
But the fact that you were able to keep calm relatively under such circumstances, I give you a lot of credit.
I attribute that to what I experienced in my childhood that I said was a long story. People
Okay.
ask me because of all the different things I've been through. They said, "How come you're not in hysterics?" I said, "If you went through with what I did as a child, um, this is just nothing."
Right,
Yeah,
right.
by
If there's anything
comparison.
more that comes to mind that especially stand out at this point, uh, either childhood or young adult.
Oh, sure. Um, well, this would be a vehicle that I was in, but I think I was underground. And there's a reason I came to this conclusion. I'll get to that.
Okay.
I was in a spaceship, and the window was about waist high, and then it went up maybe 4 or 5 feet. And the window's, I'd say about 12 feet long, slightly curved and slanted. And I'm looking out, and I was in a building, and it was as smooth as Formica. And the floor to the back wall I was looking at, maybe 50 feet away, big rectangular windows above. But as I looked down below, there was about 15 or so grays. And the two in the back said, "There goes another one." No, there was one closer. I actually had drawn a picture of them. They were the ones that had the not almond shape. Well, yeah, almond shaped eyes, but the round part was towards the nose, and it scooped around, pointed towards where our ears would be. They're very symmetric between the eyes, the two little nose holes in the mouth. It was like very equidistant. And one thing I did notice about the nose bridge, because one got close enough, is it was flat right here. And it actually had two lines. It's almost like a plastic insert. It didn't even
Hmm.
look natural. It was such a delineation. And I knew to my left where I could look, you could see the curved hallway. I think I estimated, drawing on paper because of the curvature of the window, this vehicle was probably 90 feet across. And the oddest thing I saw, it was bright, even though we were inside, but I couldn't see where the light was coming from, but there was no shadows.
Hmm.
And
I've heard that same description with some other people that I've interviewed, that there wasn't any obvious places where there was illumination. It was simply illuminated all over and fairly evenly. So that does check with some other people who said they were in vehicles and that it was very much like what you're saying, very smooth and curvy, but no straight lines or angles.
right. And the what really nailed it for me is on one program, I was listening to David Adair, and he was describing being in, I don't know if it was Area 51, but he said it was the darndest thing. It was all lit up in there. He said, I couldn't figure out where the light was coming from, but there was no shadows. So he was in a, what would you call a U.S. military secret base. So I assume that's where I was. Maybe those
Mhm.
places are big enough to house ships beyond your imagination. It's gigantic under there. Yeah. Another
Interesting.
another one I remember. Um Now this was brief, and I did have confirmation about some of the things I saw later on. I was in this, I'll call it a room because I didn't know where I was. It
Mhm.
was cylindrical, but it was very large. The size of a huge gymnasium or something. And in the center of this room was a giant cylinder going up. It wasn't totally smooth. There was I couldn't figure out. There was what seemed to be a little door on the side of it, maybe about the size of I don't know. I don't know how big it was, a picture frame. I'm thinking, how could anybody get up there to open that door? And there was other little attachments on it. I can't figure out exactly how wide it was. It could have been about 15 feet wide or bigger.
So something like a shaft of some sort?
Yeah, a big cylinder in the middle of this room.
Cylinder, like a metal or something like that?
That's what it appeared to be like.
Okay.
And there was a lot of people in there, just from kids to adults wandering around. Some were talking to each other. They were all in regular street clothes. And this one woman who apparently was in charge, she was a rather large woman in a house dress. She had very dark hair, and she noticed me just ambling around looking lost. And she told me to go sit on this. It was a rectangular cube, like attached to the floor. And I sat there, and I don't remember any more than that.
Now
But
these people were like just from Earth. I mean, they look like regular people from our planet.
oh yeah, there must have been about 40 or more in there. A whole
Okay. And
bunch
were
of
they,
people.
did you get a sense that they were in fear or something like that? Or were they okay?
They seemed okay. There was no panicking. And I
All
wasn't
right.
panicking either. I was just like, where am I and what am I doing here?
Right.
And
Wow. Wow. And also, and you must have been just breathing regular air. So there was airflow going on, was there not?
had to be, yeah.
Yeah, there'd have to be that.
So
Interesting.
I have heard of vehicles that I found out later on, shafts right up through the center, and
Right.
also the cubes attached to the floor for beings to sit.
Did you ever have a feeling that you were on a table being examined? Did that ever come into
Oh,
your life?
yeah. Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, that might be one of the first confirmations I recall on television, because it was very similar to what I saw. I would have to describe it. It felt like a metal table. There was no
Okay.
padding. I felt like I was 4 feet off the ground. I couldn't see a lot of detail because there was this bright light. I would compare it to a state policeman's spotlight when you can't see anything but tracers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was blinding me. In those tracer lights, I can see very long arms moving. I could see I had, I would say, brand new white, what would you call them? Like the ankle high basketball sneakers on, but they
Okay.
looked like they were two sizes too big for me. They were on my feet. I don't know what they were doing there.
Did
And
you have a feeling that you were being restrained in any way?
the only thing I recall feeling, because I became conscious of where I was feeling pain, and I would have to say it was every cell in my body,
Wow.
ev- every cell. It
How
was,
long did that last? Was that a very brief thing or was the pain continual?
it stopped when this being on my right put its hand over my forehead, and that's all I remember
Okay.
after that. But meanwhile, I thought, are they trying to see how much pain I can take before I die?
Wow.
But later on, I'm wondering if are they beaming me up or out? Or was it some kind of alien x-ray?
Mm-hmm.
But
Wow.
I don't remember. I couldn't move my head. I couldn't move.
Right.
So,
That feeling of not being able to move at all and a feeling that you've had some memory wiped is very common with a lot of people who have been abducted.
mhm,
Those things seem to be running through, and also the fact that there's thought communication, not verbal like we would talk, but very clear thought transmission of ideas back and forth.
mhm,
So
yeah,
that all rings true of a lot of other people who've experienced something like that. Uh,
yeah.
where do you want to go now?
Um, well, I had another encounter with missing time, but I didn't see the ship, but I did see some weird things.
Please, if you will, and take your time. This is riveting, really.
Okay. This place I lived up in, it's called West Hill Lake, between the Barkhamsted and New Hartford town line in Connecticut. And it was a dirt road. There's cottages there. This house I lived in was a cottage. It could get cold in the winter there. And we were one of 2 permanent residences there. And if I could describe the house, if you're standing outside on the front sidewalk, actually, if you're on the street, which is a dirt road, it's about 30 feet of a little old paved sidewalk. You walk up 3 cement steps to a big arched front door. There's a porch a windowed in porch to the right. The living room jutted out a little bit to the left. And if you walk in, now you're in this entryway porch. Then you open another door and you have a dining room to your right, a living room to your left, a bedroom back left, a kitchen back right, and a bathroom beyond that. So it was a small little place. It had upstairs, but I woke up about 10 of 2 one morning, and I had to use the bathroom. So I walked out, took a left because I had to take a U-turn to go through the opening to go into the kitchen. Something caught my eye through these arched windows in the windowed in porch. It was this orange ball of light coming through the woods across the street. So it came from over the lake. Now I see it through the woods. That's when I first saw it. Came over the dirt road and over my car, my Ford Escort, a white car, parked on the road. Then it started to go a little lower down up the sidewalk. So I decided to move closer into the porch to get a better look at this. I'm like, what is it? It was about as big as a volleyball, amber colored and real staticky. You know how you saw the black and white static on your TV? It was like that, except it was amber static. And it paused for a moment and then took a J hook, and I lost sight of it because of the house jutting out, the living room jutting out. As soon as that disappeared, now outside my door, to the left of this, what would you call it, the sidewalk, was a wisteria tree. It was about 8 feet tall. I kept it kind of bonsai'd. Well, now this beam of light comes down about the circumference of a trash can lid. Brightest, most beautiful white light I've ever seen. And I was dumbfounded. I stared at it and I said, wow, this must be what they saw in the Bible. That's all I can think. And I said, I can't go outside because all I have is my underpants on. But there was nobody up there. I could have. It's probably a good thing I didn't. But so this beam of light starts moving back and forth like a radial arm saw would, not swinging, but back and forth about 4 or 5 times. And you can see the shadows of the leaves moving as the light moved. And I said, again, I can't go out. And then the light retracted. And I said, wow, that must have been a UFO. So I had to use the bathroom. So I continue on, and there's my stove. Oh, by the way, I had gone from the porch after the beam of light went up. So all of a sudden, now I'm in the living room again. So I was like maybe 10 feet. I moved 10 feet. Don't remember moving 10 feet. So then I went to the bathroom, and the clock on the stove said 10 after 2. And I said, that's not right. I saw 10 of 2 when I left to go to the bathroom. I use the bathroom. I come out. It's about 12 after now. And then I double checked the clock in the bedroom. It was coordinated. I said, this is weird. I just lost 20 minutes. And I had to go to work in the morning to Torrington, Connecticut, where I was doing maintenance work. So I go outside to my car, and except for a couple of dangling leaves, all the leaves fell off this wisteria tree. And I wrote down the date. It was August 9th, I forgot. I'll find the date, but it was in August.
Okay.
All right. Leaves shouldn't have fallen off the tree.
Right. So something was going on there that made it do that, and it's not normal.
It doesn't end there.
Yeah.
So I go to work, and my coworker wanted to go check out this brand new drive-through. It wasn't a Dunkin' Donuts yet. but it was a Sunoco station, and they had just put in a coffee donut drive-through. And I'm in the passenger side of the company truck. And this man in a vehicle, it was a light colored car, a 4-door, pulled up real fast, like not even taking courtesy to not block pumps, got out of his car. And this man was in a light brown suit. He had blonde hair, blue eyes. He came right up to the window where I am, and he took my picture, ran back in his car, and flew off. He took off. I went, what the heck? So I assumed that was government. I think they know it was over my house. I think they knew I was taken, and we're not supposed to be taken without permission or without being told. That's what I hear the government regulation is.
To tell us more about that, the government regulation, just anything you can.
Well, are you familiar with the Majestic 12?
Yes.
Okay. Apparently, I forgot who was the president. Well, they made a deal where they would trade technology, and these other beings were allowed to take humans. And there was an exchange program. And some people, didn't come back. There's a lot going on. That's a whole nother show.
Oh boy, you're absolutely right, and we will have another show like that, and we're definitely please be part of that. Eisenhower, when he was secretly meeting, I believe twice, I believe that's right, and there was some sort of a deal that was negotiated, and I'm always wondering if part of that was that they could sample by abduction of people. For whatever reasons they had. I wonder if that was part of the deal. Do you ever have any feelings of that there was a deal and what it might have been?
I have more than feelings. I know where to access documents that were given to somebody who shouldn't have them. And
Okay.
it talks about that. It's actually on a website for an internet radio show, and she has them public. She took over for Art Bell, so she has them public where anybody can read them. And they are pretty amazing.
Can you give us slowly, if you have the website address?
Yes. It's www. And I'll say it first. The Kingdom of Nye, that's Nancy Yellow Easy.com.
And then will you spell it slowly too, please?
Okay, www.kingdomofnye.com.
Oh, thank you very much.
And if you go there, you can look and go down to, you'll have to explore. Maybe I can clarify it. It's one of the drop-down menus, and then it has DIY documents.
Okay.
Something like that. And yeah, it's about 50 pages. And oh, no, I don't. Yeah, I have it here. Hang on. There's some interesting things in there.
I bet there are. We'll definitely explore that.
One of the things, I just used this piece of paper to cover my camera, but it has these things there.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what these are. Maybe there's some kind of buttons on the console of one of the ships. Type C concept icons.
I'd love to see that. I'm a graphic designer by trade, so symbolism like that. I love things like that. So I'm very interested in seeing that when we have the time to really go looking at that. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'd like to, Adrienne, at this point, before I start asking you more questions, and I certainly have more, I'd like to ask the people that are right now here if there's any question on their mind at this point, by doing a one-sentence question, if they would like to ask you, and we won't go back and forth with Adrienne, guys. If you want to ask one question within a sentence, she'll try to answer it, and then we'll move to someone else, and then we'll come back to my interview. So, Jim, do you want to start off? Is there any particular question that's coming up for you right now? You want to unmute?
No questions.
No, at this point. Okay, Linda, how about you? You have to unmute. Linda, unmute. And just if there's like a one-sentence question you might want to ask Adrienne, that would be good. There you go. Okay, you can hear you now.
Okay, very interesting. All her stories. I believe every single one, right down to the last period. I've had my own, as the group knows. Um, as far as the implants, I know that I have some implants, and I have very strange marks on my body. And an expert that I went to a seminar at one of those hotels where Mark does that seminar thing. It's not on now, Mark and Phyllis. They told me I had implants. I have strange marks on my body. I have, for instance, on my leg, I have moon-size rashes that never go away.
Mhm.
They're like moon-size, little moon-size rashes.
Those areas, do they ever get itchy?
They get itchy like hell. I was to urgent care about 3 times over the last 6 months for some sort of cream, because the creams that I have in my medicine cabinet that used to do it don't do it anymore. And I'm very clean. I don't sit on bowls. I don't do anything. I don't eat anything. You know, I mean, I watch my diet because of my humanoid situation. And I have this. And I have other things too in the groin area, you know. So I know because of being paralyzed and being taken over and then being put back at the same place at the same time, and then having that difference within myself, different things going on. I know that I have had implants and I still do.
Is there
Yeah.
any question about the implants you'd like to ask Adrienne at the moment?
I don't, you know, there was one doctor that used to remove them. He's dead. I forget his name. And I don't know who does this type of work, Adrienne, anymore, doctor-wise, that they want to take that chance to remove them, or if there's anybody around anymore that does that type of thing. Because once they're in there, you know, they keep track and they keep coming back and they keep track of you all the time.
I
And
want to just volunteer my just a thing of my own observation, and that is I think that sometimes they are itchy because you tend to scratch, and therefore you're massaging the area, the muscles, and the blood. And I have a feeling that somehow that might energize what is implanted. That's just my personal theory, but
that's a way of looking at it. I don't itch them. I just let them itch. As much as it is a suffering sometimes, I let them itch, and they don't itch anymore. I have this cream I put on, but they're, no matter what cream I put on, like every doctor says, well, this cream will do it. They're there.
Does it work?
They're
Does it
there.
work?
It's
Okay,
underneath
Anthony.
your skin, right? That's what it
Thank
feels
you.
like.
Underneath my skin.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Linda.
it's in my thigh area.
I have
Thigh
serious
area.
problems. I've had serious problems. And they say it's an autoimmune disease.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah,
has been able to cure it. Nobody.
yeah.
And I've
Interesting.
actually lost the skin off my body 3 times. I've been
Wow.
screaming to Jesus for an hour straight. I
Whoa.
was like a burn victim. You know how I got better? I have a
No.
friend
How?
who's a witch. See these
Oh,
earrings?
Yeah.
She
yeah,
put the power into these earrings to cure me, and I have been fine.
yeah. You
What,
have
what
to
are they
get
made
witch.
out of? The earrings, what are they made out of?
Turquoise, but she put her power into them to
Okay.
heal
Yeah.
me.
Oh,
You have
Linda,
to get
that's
the right witch, Adrienne, the right witch. There's a lot of witches out there, and you know, they take your money and say that they could do this and that. You have to get the right witch, and you did. Thank God. I've been searching for 40 some odd years. Nick knows some of my story, and so do the other people. I was sick for 40 some odd years. And finally, after 6 years, the last 6 years, I found myself with different treatments and I came around. But I have been sick for all those years and these things still come about. I sleep at night, I get up different frequencies, different dimensions, things on my body, you know.
that goes on. Wow. Well, we're going to get to that. And Linda, sometime when we do a round table, I certainly want to include Adrienne on this so that we can really compare some notes here, because I
Of
think
course.
that's very important. Okay, I'm going to go to Anthony. Anthony, do you have a question for Adrienne you'd like to ask?
I actually do. I didn't.
Come closer so we can hear you much better, my friend.
Can you hear me now?
Much better, yes.
So the praying mantis, I'm curious about this because I've heard of this kind of being before, and as well the same kind of comment about compassion and spirituality. Was that the only experience that you remember? And can you say anything more about its compassion? Would you want to work with it?
Yeah, I could say a little bit more. Unfortunately, each time I've seen a being, it is the only time I have seen that being. And I would just have to call him fatherly. A person whose name I can't mention, I call them my contact or connection, is familiar with these beings. This one had a grasshopper head, not the mantis head. Okay, so it was a little different. And he said they are kind of like the ambassadors between us in other places or other beings. And I would think so, because he definitely had a good personality where he's very congenial, very nice. And but there it was I would like to see him again. I did get over the heebie-jeebies as far as his looks, because afterwards I went out and started picking up grasshoppers and crickets and looking at them with a magnifying glass going, okay, we're okay now.
Yeah, that's so true though. I've heard many times people say that it was the grasshopper, those kinds of beings that were very friendly, as opposed to others that weren't so friendly. So it's amazing the personalities that can come forth, and you're underlining something that other people have also mentioned. So that's interesting. Thank you, Anthony, for your question. We're going to go to Hal. Hal, anything you want to say at this point? Any question you might have?
Yeah, I was just wondering, did your husband have any experiences with that? And if he didn't, how did he react to the experiences you had and were having?
My late husband was an investigator. He has had visual experiences and actually chased them. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you can look this up. This is kind of historic. It's called Strangers in the Sky. This was printed out for me. I don't know if you can see the title. It's about local historic sightings here in Connecticut.
Huh.
And he had interviewed quite a few people. But the problem with NICAP is that unless there was a witness, they don't put a lot of credit into it.
Right.
So out of all the stories I told him, he was kind of like, meh, except for one where I had a witness, where I actually called in a UFO. And the guy freaked out because it showed up. So, yeah.
That's a pretty normal for the way people are treated. Okay, well, thank you, Hal, for that question. We're going to go to Sonia. Sonia, unmute yourself. Do you have a question at this point?
No, but I find this very interesting, but no questions.
Okay. Oh, thank you. All right. Well, let's see now. We'll go to, I think Elaine is not here. She must be feeding her cat at the moment. Oh, there she is. Unmute. And if you have a one sentence question you want to ask.
No, I don't, but thank you very much, Adrienne. This is great, and you're doing a great job interviewing.
Thank you. It's fun.
So I'm just gonna go back to cutting up my little girl's lamb, and I will be listening.
I'll be right over. Lamb.
Okay.
Wow,
right,
she's a good cook. She's a really good cook. All right, we're going to go on to Carol. Do you have anything you want to unmute and ask one question, please? Carol, can you hear me? I can't see you, obviously.
Yes,
here you go.
yes.
Go ahead,
I don't
please.
have any questions, but I'm listening intently to the interview.
You're going to have to talk louder because
I said I have no questions, but I am listening intently to the interviewer.
Yeah, me too. All right, thank you very much, Carol. Veronica, how about you? Do you have something you want to unmute and ask a one sentence question at this point? I can't see you, so I'm seeing your name on the screen, and it says you're muted. Are you there right now? No? Okay, we're going to move on. Monique, hi, Monique. You got to unmute, Monique, if you will. Unmute your microphone. It's on the bottom left of your screen. No? Not there. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to phone number 570. Why don't you unmute, and if you have a question? No? Not at this point. Okay. And last but not least, number 860, if you want to unmute and ask a question. Doesn't seem to be all right. Oh, wait, is somebody connecting? Veronica?
Oh, hi. Can you
Hi
guys
there.
hear me now? Hi. I had to give Zoom access to my microphone. My one question is whether or not you've had I guess any experience with the polycystic ovary syndrome, which is something that happens with only women.
Yeah. Is that the kind that so painful it'll put you on your floor? Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've also had, I haven't gotten to this story yet, but I have 2 missing embryos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, that whole area is, thank you for that question, by the way. That could be a whole program unto itself. But we've had people talk about that. And one person, I believe a woman, said that at one point in her abduction experiences, S, that she saw half human, half ET beings, small children,
Yes.
and they said that these are yours.
Wow.
I am just floored with that. Absolutely floored with the fact that could very well be happening. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I can
all right. We're
expand
going to
on that.
continue then. I'm going to ask, well, you tell me, would you like to relate another story we haven't talked about yet? And then I'll get to some questions.
We might as well, now that we're on the embryo thing.
Okay.
Okay. This has to do with this place again up at the New Hartford Barkhamsted town line. And I was in the small bedroom on my waterbed, and I woke up to some talking, very soft talking. And I opened my eyes, and there's these, I call them little baby old men. There's 3 of them. 2 of them had their back to me, and they're about 3 feet tall. One of them was facing me, and it sounded, this is the best way I can describe it. And this is the first time I actually heard speech from any being. If you combined French, Dutch, and German all together and jammed it into one language, that's what it sounded like they were saying.
Huh.
They were wearing like brown Yoda robes. They actually had a pretty good sleeve on them, a band right across the middle around their waist. And the one that was facing me had, well, it was bald, but the further down you got to the chin, I'm sorry, I touched my mic, the older it got, looking like more refined and narrow chinned and wrinkled. And the eyes, I would say, were like a graphite gray. There was no pupil or anything. And the eyelids were thick. I mean, I'm looking right at this being. If you can imagine an elephant eyelid and how thick it would be,
Yep.
it was like awnings. Like if you turned it sideways, you would actually see some sort of a real lid. So as soon as he looked at me and noticed I was sitting up, I fell backwards. He just knocked me right out. And in the morning, I had to get up and go drive school bus. That's what I did for a living. And I tried to sit up and I fell back down. And I tried to sit up again, and it was like I was drugged. Finally, I got up, and I was mad because these little beings messed me up.
Wow.
And it happened the next night too. And I got mad, and I said, and I sat up before I went to bed. I said, "You're not allowed." I said, "I have to get up for work. You can't do this anymore."
Did that work?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting that you willed something to stop, say, get out of here. You're in my space. You're in my life. And something happened that it worked. That's interesting.
Yeah, you don't have permission. I told him, you don't have permission to knock me out. Well, apparently 2 months later, I started to bleed, and it wouldn't stop. And it
Where were you bleeding?
I was like a woman's menstrual flow.
Okay. All right.
And it wouldn't stop, and it wasn't normal. There was no tissue loss. There's no clotting, nothing you would normally, it wasn't normal. I went to my doctor, and he came back after giving me a test. He says, "You were pregnant." He says, "Were." I said, "I was, and I shouldn't have been." I said, "Oh, wow." Oh, my hair's standing up again. So I assume it had something to do with these beings.
Isn't that, wow, that is.
And it happened again months later. I became pregnant again. And the same thing happened. I didn't bother going to the doctor. I was pretty sure I knew what happened. Yeah.
So do you feel as though something was like the beginning of a baby was taken from you and to put into another place? Do you feel that?
Yeah. I just found out a detail recently that, let's see, this was about 2.5 months. It was like 14 weeks. At 14 weeks is a very common time span for them to implant you and then remove. And I went, oh, that's a ringer right there. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's extraordinary, and the implications of that are mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing, and also the why of that. What is the purpose of that? Where are they going with that? That is, we could spend another program just on that alone. That's fascinating.
My only son might not be an only son.
Think of that. Think of that. You know, in my own personal life, I was in I think my 50s, and maybe more than that. And my mom had passed on, and my dad said to me, "Nick, we have to talk about something." And I had no secrets from my parents at all. I always wanted that, and I thought, "Okay, Dad, you're driving a car. When we get home, we'll talk." And we got home, and I said, "So, Dad, you said there was something important you wanted to tell me." Now, this was a few months after my mom had passed on. And he said, "There's something you need to know. And as long as I'm living, I'll be able to answer your questions. And I want you to ask. There's something you need to know, Nick." And I said, "Okay, Dad, what is it?" Now, I have one sister who's a couple of years younger than me. That's my family. That's the only other family I have is just my sister, younger sister. And my dad looks at me and says, "Nick, you have a brother. You have a brother." I mean, it was
Wow.
like, getting hit with a truck. You
Yeah.
have, and I was spinning. I said, "Would you repeat that? Because I have to hear that again." Because I was in disbelief. And he said, "Nick, you do have a brother, an older brother." And I said, and my head was spinning, and I said, the only thing I could think of to say was, "He's still alive." Now, I don't know why I said that, but I blurted out, "Is he still alive?" And my dad said, "Yes, Nick, you know him.
Oh, God.
He's one of your uncles." So anyhow, that's a long story, but I know what it's like to get hit with that sort of news. It changes everything in your life. Everything now has been changed, and you go right down the line. So that's a fascinating subject. I want to ask you about missing time again. Is there any particular incident that was just, how shall I say this, overwhelming to you about losing time?
Sorry.
Adrienne, there you go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was muted because I'm coughing. Yeah, there was another time, again, up at this place at West Hill Lake. I went on a 45-minute errand. We didn't live far from a Finest or whatever the store was. I went there, just came home. Should have taken about 45 minutes. I came home 2.5 hours later, and my boyfriend said, "Where were you?"
Where were you?
But the weird thing was, I looked at my watch. 3 times I looked at my watch, and I couldn't understand how to read time. And I thought that was jumped. But I just couldn't understand how to read a watch. Something was like, "Nope, you can't look at this. You can't read it."
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
And I just, what am I going to say? I just didn't know what to say.
Like a post-hypnotic suggestion that don't do this, don't do that. And
that could have been.
Yeah, it sounds like something like that was going on.
I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, some of us have had an experience like that. Also, I wanted to ask you about unexplained powers of the mind. That was one of the listings that you had mentioned. Is there an example of that you could tell us?
Yeah. Okay. This got to be pretty weird. And I believe I ended up with these powers of the mind, again, from that long story from my childhood, battling this thing that I finally learned not to have any fear. But this thing was not okay. I don't know what it was, whether it was alien or demonic, but I think it left me with some kind of power. Unless I was a god or goddess in my past life, who knows? But the first inkling I had, I was in junior high school. There was a female bully there. I really wanted her to move as far away as possible. And I just looked at her and thought, "I want you to move." She ran away to California within 2 weeks. I said, "That'll do."
That will do. Wow.
But that's
quite a move.
I didn't think much of that until later on. There was this one guy, a purse snatcher. Okay. My girlfriend and I'm going to make a long story short, caught him, held on to him. He had been wandering around trying to escape for a while, but when we got a hold of him, his mouth was bloody. He probably fell in the river or hit a tree or who knows, in the dark, right? Well, the police came, and apparently the police came back to us and said that he was going to sue us for beating him up. We were like, what? They knew that was not the right story, but he was going to take it to court anyway. And I thought, well, that son of a gun, I want you to just kill yourself. In about a week, he put himself in his truck and the pipe asphyxiated himself. So he did kill himself.
Wow.
And then I had a neighbor who would always stir up the stew, cause so much trouble between people. Just a hobby, I guess, to be not nice.
They're out there.
Yeah, and these are people that really interfered, like really wronged me, So this is when I'd start to get in this type of a brain. So when I finally moved out of that neighborhood, I did the California cruise by her house, looked at it, and I said, I hope you choke to death. She did. And then I had an ex-boss, a very abusive work situation, really bad. And on my last day, I turned and looked at him. And in my own mind, I thought, my father was a good man, but he ended up with a tumor the size of a golf ball behind his right eye. But it was benign and he had it removed. I said, that should happen to you. He got a tumor the size of a golf ball behind his right eye, except it was cancerous, and he died.
Whoa.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff, I had a landlord, drove me absolutely insane. A landlord that took over from an original landlord. So he was when I tried to move out, he was just trying to rob me blind, driving me crazy. So I thought, when I moved out, I thought, I want you to go crazy. Well, he did. He got liver cancer, polluted blood, and his wife said he went insane in the hospital, completely insane. So these things, I thought, there's got to be something to this. So I went out and bought a book called Spells, Hexes, and Curses. I had no computer then, because all I had was basically an encyclopedic dictionary. That was my computer. And it was about the Lincoln curse and the Kennedy curse. And I thought, wow, this stuff's real. It was chock full of things that could happen. So that kind of thing is real. I'm very careful about how I think now. And I don't know where this came from. I had one other person tell me there's very few with the power of the mind like that, but we're out there.
Wow. You wonder where that came from and what was behind. Very interesting stuff. I want to ask you also, you listed something that was interesting to me. It said passing through a solid object. And I'd like to know, was that because you were abducted and you were going into a space of a ship or something and they put you through a wall? Was it something like that?
No, this was weirder than that. If you could think something weirder.
Weirder than that? Go ahead, please.
All right. I was at this job. The job was going to kill me. I mean, literally going to kill me because no sleep. They own you. I was working on, 2 to 4 hours sleep a day if I was lucky. And the shifts were very long.
Rough.
14 to 18 hours. Yeah. But that's, and then you had to commute home. It's just, wow. So we were about to start another big job. It was my last day of days. I'm coming up a long rural route to my home. It's about 40, 45 mile an hour. I'm doing 50. And this woman pulls right out in front of my car. My Subaru. There is no way I could steer around her without rolling, or there's no time to stop. But I went through her car like a ghost.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
And I'm looking in my rearview mirror and she's already stopped in the middle of the road. I'm like, what just happened? I just went through her car like a ghost. And then she started to accelerate. She went south. I went north, and I'm thinking all the way home, what just happened? What just happened?
Like wham. I think the reality was different than what you knew was going to happen. And the reality changed over in a second.
Okay, now.
And saved your life, perhaps?
Yeah, I was supposed to get in a car accident, but I wasn't supposed to die because 2 days later, now I'm on nights and I'm heading to work.
Now, when you say you were supposed to, when you the way you say that, you felt as though something was going to happen.
I did not feel this car accident. The second one, the first one was avoided. The second incident, I didn't know was going to happen. But
Okay.
because it happened, I knew there was something to it. Because
Right.
2 days later, at an intersection after 6 p.m., this chick pulled right out across in front of me, except I was doing 40, not 50. See, the other one, I think my brain stem would have just been, I would have died because my airbag wouldn't have worked. Because when I hit this car, I pitted her. It wasn't my fault. I had a green light. But I blacked out. My car was totaled. All I remember is car parts going so far up into the sky, and that's all I remember. But my airbag wouldn't have gone off, so at least I didn't die. I hurt a lot, but it changed my life. I tried to work after that. There were several incidences of, I tried for a year with therapy, and I was in so much pain, and I just couldn't do my job anymore. I was using a roller walker on the highway. I tried. That's how I was brought up. When the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Right.
All
And your life seems to be exactly that you face challenges head on. Like you don't kind of run from that. You try to understand it. I love the fact that you're like that. I'm like that too. I think everybody here is pretty much the same way, that you're really wanting to know what's going on, and you want to be aggressive about, I need to know the truth. So that's a very incredible quality. One of the things you listed, which I was very interested in, it says an off-planet experience. Could you tell us perhaps one instance where you felt you were off-planet and what it was like?
Yeah, this was the most recent one that I can recall.
Oh,
This was
when
on
was this? When did the timing take place?
December 18th. I believe it was the 18th, 2018. And the scene was, I was on my couch in my living room. I was going to take a nap because once I was on nights, I tend to stay up all night. So I just survive on naps now. I was napping on my couch with a big blanket. It was a real stretchy blanket. What do you call it? Thermal.
Oh, yeah.
So you really have to fight to get them off. It was nice and warm. So I was laying down on my couch. I guess I fell asleep. My dog it was an L-shaped couch. So she was on the other side. So where I ended up was in a room. Maybe it was about 12 by 15 feet. So I remember standing there looking at this sister and a brother. I knew they were sister and brother. She might have been about 13, 14. He would have been about 4, 5, or 6. I don't know. And she was trying to get him out a window. And this room seemed portable, very much like you'd feel like in a portable trailer, like with a drop ceiling or something. Just weird. Like you could move it. I don't understand why I felt like that. There was nothing else in the room besides a little table, but I'll get to that. So she couldn't get him up and out the window. It was one of those horizontal rectangular push-outs. So I went up and looked, and there was all red dirt outside. It was very red. So I got him on my back anyway. And he was about to try and get out the window, but he scrambled back down like, uh-oh. So what had happened was this red truck pulled up. It was all shiny, brand new. I mean, big, like a Dodge Ram. No dust at all, which I could not figure out. But as soon as that pulled up, it knew that we were going to escape. I thought, uh-oh, we're in trouble. So I turned around, and there's a little table by the door, because now I'm facing the other way. And it had all my crystals on it. And one of them was one that I had an experience with. I met a god. Woo. Anyway, I thought, what are my crystals doing here? So anyway, I pulled the door open with my left hand because it opened from right to left. And I was about to try and step out. And I could see a hallway. It was almost, the way to describe it, there was a hallway in front of me. It was very collegiate-like, or like a big high school or something, and linoleum type or shiny floor doors. But this cyborg being came leaping out from the side, ninja fast. It was like 1/1000 and the job was done. It it had a, I'll call it a ray gun for lack of better terms, in its left hand, shot me in the temple, and I could feel it melding into my head. And I was out. I went down.
Wow.
Excuse me.
Wow.
So, but yeah, this being it seemed female, very thin and lean with a two-tone skin tight suit. It was wearing some kind of helmet over its head with one of those real thin visors. You know, I could see real eyes through it, but just the fact it made a dash and back, it was gone, and the job was done. These things were accurate, faster than fast. Spooky. So I talked to Preston Dennett over the phone, and he said, I'm not the only one with being shot in the temple by a cyborg.
Did you, when you're experiencing beings from very either dimensions or other locations, did you ever see or recognize any technology that might be on them in some way, some strapped on or something that they would refer to? Was there anything like that as far as a technology that was part of what they were wearing or so forth?
No.
Okay, just curious about that. And also, you've mentioned already some beings of various kinds. What other kinds of beings did you experience so far in your life? Good, bad, ugly, wonderful, angelic. What else?
Okay. Well, I met this black thing. I'm going to make, this is such a long story. I'll keep it short. We moved from Bethany, Connecticut to Orange, Connecticut. I had that one older sister. I didn't like the house. We were in a dead end. All I could say was that it was dirty. It wasn't really dirty, but I just knew there was something wrong with it. And I was outnumbered. We were going to move in. I was crying about it. So there was something there that wasn't okay. I'll keep this kind of short because it goes through years. But I was tortured every night there almost in terror. And I finally got so mad at this thing because I had a keyboard like a Wurlitzer organ. I took lessons from Rosa Rio, the one who did the shadow nose organ. Yeah, her. So I had to go practice, and there was something down there that would chase me up the stairs, and I learned to take 4 stairs at a time.
Wow.
Yeah. And
get me out of here, feet. Get me out.
And I would leave the lights on. So of course, leaving the lights on upset my father. I was forced to shut them off, which made it even more terrifying. Finally, I got so mad at this thing. I took 1 step at a time, and I could feel it thrashing at my back. So I did it. I made it all the way to the top of the stairs, extra slow. So now it couldn't feed off I was still scared, but it knew, I wasn't going to put up with it. So it showed up in my room a night or two later.
Nightmare time.
It was blacker than black. It was big, broad-shouldered, square-shouldered. It was wearing a cape. It was very finely pleated, and the only reason I knew it was just came in is the bottom of the cape was just coming to a stop. And its head was like a giant tin can. Anyways, I was curled up and looking at it going, what the heck is this? I wasn't afraid, but then it started to, I would say, microwave me from the inside out. It was turning up the terror dial real slow to the point now even blinking, I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't move. I was about this close to death. And the only thing I could do was call out to God. And I said, God, save me, in my own mind, because I couldn't even speak. I blinked one more time and opened my eyes because it was daylight. I woke up. I lost the entire night, and I ran to the bathroom to see if my hair turned white, because as a kid, that's what normally happens in cartoons. So it was a beautiful day. The sky was blue. I was alive, but now I was afraid of the daylight. I was afraid dark or light, and I thought, this is not good. So I'm just a 10-year-old kid,
Terrible way to be. Terrible.
And my parents would never, acknowledge the fact that there's something downstairs. My dad being a policeman, he'd come home in his uniform, nothing in the closet, nothing under the couch. I was not acknowledged. I even tried asking if I could sleep in their bed. That went over like a sack of rocks. I was like, nope. So I had to fend for myself. So I didn't even bother telling him about it. What I did was I went for a night walk barefoot, no flashlight. And this was just a neighborhood, no street lights, it was dark. And my dad said, aren't you going to take your German Shepherd? I said, nope. And I was terrified. I walked in the dark till I wasn't afraid anymore.
I got to ask you, during your life, have you had dogs, cats, or other animals, and have they ever reacted during the times when you were experiencing very, very strange phenomenon? Did you ever have any animals react to something like that were near you?
Oh, sure. My German Shepherd at that house
Right.
I'm referring to down in the basement, she locked right up, lowered her head, all her fur went up. This dog I have now, Maya, she's all black, part red bone coonhound. Can we see her? There she is.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Maya. Hi.
Hello.
I was downstairs here. This is a different residence, of course. I was in my den. Well, it's an open floor plan, den, kitchen, just separated by a partial counter. And she was in between the rooms, and I saw her pick her head up and lower it as if she wants to get a scent of something. And I looked, and there's this stick figure. The best way I could describe it is if you've seen those street signs with the really round heads and the boy and girl crossing, that's what it was. And it walked out of my kitchen. I went, what the heck is this thing? So I grabbed my phone and got the camera on, and I couldn't find it. But she saw it. I saw it. And there's a little bit of a story behind that, which was very strange because a month before that, a friend had given me an owl necklace. I'm an owl aficionado. I have all sorts of things, owl. It was a locket with big rhinestone eyes, and it was a good size, almost the size of an egg. It had a little glass door on both sides. You could see right through it. I had it all of less than 24 hours before it disappeared. Well, this thing the stick figure that came in that my dog saw, I went upstairs later, and there's the owl locket. It came back on top of jewelry I had worn the day before. So it was put there. I only kept my jewelry in a few places. So that stick figure might have taken it and brought it back a month later. Why? I don't know.
Wow. Thank you for that. Incredible stuff. Really.
Very strange.
We only have about 10 more minutes. I think that when we compare our stories of what we have perceived as happening to us, what went on, both good and bad, when we're able to share that information with others, it gives you a clarity about your own experiences. And this group has been extraordinary about sharing things that have happened to them or that they knew about, and trying to connect the dots, which is our motto, has really worked. And some people have said when they come to our meetings or even on the Zoom meetings, that it's such a relief to be able to talk about subjects that they can't talk about with their wives, husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever, children, that there's no way they can really express what's on their mind. And so I think one of the things that we are, I think, do really well is enable people to share those experiences with us. And I think that it helps them, and it certainly helps us, especially when you're saying something that resonates to someone else, that, oh my God, that happened to me too. So it's a very therapeutic, I find it amazing. We only have a few more minutes, but I want to just ask everybody here, if you have just very briefly, within a sentence now, and I mean one sentence, if there's any other quick questions you have within a sentence, just wave your hand so I can see where you are.
I just have a question.
We're going to go with Jim first because Jim has Jim unmute. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. I was going to just tell you, can you go to Monica first, because she had a question before, but she was unable to ask it. So can you just let her ask her question?
Jim, I'm so sorry. I wasn't hearing that.
I'm saying Monica was trying to ask a question earlier, but she was having a problem. So please go to Monica first for her question.
Oh,
now.
Do you want to reply?
Yeah. Yes. Hi, Nick. I just had a quick. Thank you so much, Jim. I had a quick question.
Glad you're with us. Oh, I see your hand was up. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yes. Sorry about that. I just had a quick question regarding any sleep disturbances that Adrienne experienced after this, having yes, or out of body experiences, or even like a fear of open sky, like a feeling of sort of annihilation about looking at an open sky, like a weird sensation about that.
I think I was able to get some of that. You did cut out twice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it had to do with, no, I don't have a fear of open sky.
Okay.
And what else?
The other part was, out of body type of experiences, leaving your body,
I know I have, because I've been slammed back into my body, and I've actually seen myself go through the roof. Yeah.
Wow.
At light speed. Well, you know how it is when you hit your bed, when you go back into your body too fast. So
Yes.
It's just like
What a sensation that must be. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Monique. Thank you for that question. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay, we have Linda. One sentence, please, but please go ahead. Oh, you got to unmute yourself.
Okay,
now.
here we are. Okay, quickly. I've had 3 of these experiences. I'm going to be quick about it. I was 3.5 months pregnant. That is 14 weeks. And the baby was taken from me. Okay. Mysterious. The doctor didn't know how that happened, why it happened. There was no blood, nothing. I was pregnant for 3.5 months, and then I was not. So that's one thing. As far as power of the mind, I didn't realize I had power of the mind until people started getting into very bad accidents and dying. Or whatever word I said, whoever agitated me, I was young then, so I didn't realize any of this. Whoever bothered me and whatever I said happened, including a family member in my own family. And third, I was driving on the Bell Parkway. There was a car way down in the middle of the road, 3 lanes. Well, I didn't realize that this car was just stopped. I was going pretty fast. Somebody took the wheel over, turned the wheel, got on the right lane, passed the car, went into the middle lane again, and I proceeded on. I was 22 years old, and I will never forget that, how my life was saved. Yeah. So those 3 things I can relate to. Adrienne and I are friends already, because I can see what she's saying. I can understand totally, and I hope she understands me as well.
Oh yeah.
Well, I look forward to a roundtable discussion when we really can really exchange back and forth. But thank you for that, Linda. Always, really, wow, that's incredible. Let me go. Is there any? How about anybody want to wave their hand and ask one more question within a sentence? Anybody before we go? Okay. Well, this has been really quite illuminating on many levels. I certainly want to thank you, Adrienne, for being with us and for sharing some of your most personal experiences here.
It's a total pleasure.
You have helped us. You have helped each one of us by doing that. I'd like you to join us again when we do a roundtable discussion, so that we can go back and forth a little bit more, other than a lecture series. But thank you so much. Certainly appreciate it.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Yeah, we didn't even touch on Bigfoot or psychic abilities. We'll have to do that sometime too. I'd love to chip in on that.
I'm going to also suggest that in the early spring, we have another meeting where you can go into a part 2 of some of the other experiences you've had. I don't want to rush that at all.
Mm-hmm. Anytime.
Okay, great. Again, thank you so much.
You're
and
welcome.
To everybody out there who has been with us for this 90 minutes, just want to thank you very much for joining us. This is Disclosure Network New York. Our website is www.dnny.info, I-N-F-O, dnny.info. And you can contact us there. I'm also going to give you my email address if you have a question or a comment. And here we go with my email, which is NICKNYNY, the numeral 1 @gmail.com. So it's NICKNYNY 1@gmail.com. I'd be very happy to take your comments or your questions. So with that, to everybody, an enlightening journey as you connect your own dots to seek the truth. Till next time, much love to everyone. Take good care. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you, Nick.
Love.